Chapter 7. Vanya awoke to the feeling of Katyusha's hands in his hair. He opened his eyes to see Katyusha sitting beside him. "Good morning, sleepyhead," whispered Katyusha. Vanya rose quickly and looked around the room. Did I fall asleep in your bed?" he asked. "Yes, it's fine though. You fell asleep in my arms last night," she replied. "I did? I'm sorry," replied Vanya. "No worries," said Katyusha, jumping forward to give Vanya a hug. "I understand." "Did you sleep well?" asked Katyusha. Vanya thought for a moment, then nodded. "Yes, I actually slept quite all right last night. It felt quite nice to have somebody to understand how I felt, even if I felt quite terrible." "That's good." "Well, good that you felt understood. Listen, I just want to say, I really did mean what I said yesterday, Vanya. You're a good friend to me." "I'm glad that you think so, Katyusha. I really do enjoy your company as well. I've been rather lonesome after the war, to be honest. I don't have many friends to talk to. Few of my former comrades are still around. So many were so deep into their ideology. I just really never wanted to go back and talk to them." "I understand what you mean," said Katyusha. "All I wanted to do was have fun with Nona. She and I were so close. But Clara, she was so deep into her ideology that she wanted us to move forward with it. It's not to say that it wasn't something we believed in, it's just, I don't know, it all sort of spiraled out of control." Vanya sat with Katyusha beside him and thought for a moment before asking, "Katyusha." "Yes, Vanya? What sort of things did you and Nona do on a night like tonight's will be? A nice, fair summer's evening?" Katyusha smiled as she recalled, "We would sometimes go out to a nice restaurant, one with yummy food. Nona always liked the more formal places. I really just liked the food." "What food do you like best?" asked Vanya. "Stroganoff," exclaimed Katyusha. Vanya laughed and smiled at her response. "Stroganoff, huh? Okay. I think I know a place we can go." "Really?" asked Katyusha, a wide smile plastering itself on her face. "Yeah. Besides, I'm sure you've had enough of my cooking over the last few months. Certainly a treat would be rather welcome," he smiled. The two went into town that afternoon to walk the shops downtown. Vanya held Katyusha's hand as they walked about. He looked down at her and observed her light blonde hair bounce up and down with each step that she took. Every time it fell, it landed on her light pink dress that she wore, with white trim. It was the same dress that his wife used to wear. It was funny to Vanya how similar the two were in stature, demeanor, innocence. He almost felt nostalgic about his past with Vernie. He wished only to feel her hand in his once more, to feel her head on his shoulder, her lips on his, to go back to the days of their youth, and to hear her sweet voice one more time, so that he could tell her, in his own words, that he loved her, and he could hear Vernie reply, that "I love you too." Vernie always saw the best in people, and perhaps that is why she married a mercenary. It was nice to have somebody like that for Vanya in a time where everything was so dark, where everyone was sad. Vanya felt Katyusha's hand pull on his as he walked past her momentarily before turning around to see her staring in the window of a candy shop. Vanya remembered all the times when he took his son and daughter there, when they were children. "Wow," remarked Vanya. I can't believe that this store is still open. I used to take my boy and my girl here, usually at the end of the week." "Is it good?" asked Katyusha. "The best," replied Vanya. "Can we go inside?" asked Katyusha. "Yes, I think I would like that," replied Vanya. The two entered, and inside Vanya saw the man that he had known for many years, the man who gave his daughter her first candy, the man who let his son sample chocolates even when he did not buy anything. "Hello. How might I help you today?" asked the man. "Hello, Mr. Bordoff. How are you?" asked Vanya. "Vanya Alexander? If it isn't the man himself. I've not seen you since the war, and before then why, I remember when you used to come in here with your son and your daughter. You were much younger then," laughed the candy shop keep. "Indeed I was. I was maybe 24 or 26 then," replied Vanya. "Goodness, time passes. You must be in your 30s now," said Mr. Bordoff. 36, replied Vanya. "Time certainly flies," replied Bordoff. The shopkeep looked down then to Katyusha and said, "Who's this? Somebody I've not met before?" "She's a friend of mine," began Vanya, attempting to hide her identity. "Is that Katyusha?" asked the shopkeeper. Vanya froze. "I am Katyusha, former premier of this union, but I am no longer that woman, sir," she replied. Bordoff looked at her suspiciously. "Vanya, is this true?" "Bordoff, sir, you know me. You know the revolution better than most. You know that I never meant for any of this to occur. I've been spending time with Katyusha, and I think that she is the same," he stated. I trust you, friend. And if Vanya trusts you, Katyusha, then I suppose I do too. But you know this is hard for me, Vanya. After what the army did to our families, I was almost sent to a re-education camp." Katyusha spoke up before Vanya could answer the man. "Mr. Bordoff, I'm sorry. I know that might not seem like much coming from me, given that you've never even met me before. I never realized how the army's actions really impacted the greater country at large. I never meant for all this to happen. I would say that I never meant to hurt anyone. But at the end of the day, I was the one who gave the okay to get rid of the first group of dissidents, and each wave after that. And therefore I am culpable. But nonetheless, regretful of my actions." "We all make mistakes, Katyusha. Even in my youth I made many. Vanya and I are from a time long before yours. I still remember being in the army back in my prime. I fought in the First Great War, a war that tore this land apart, and before then a mistake of your magnitude would have been something damning. But after that, with the state this whole nation is in, I struggle to fault you for what you've done. I believe you. I believe that you saw our lands and tried to unify them for good. But know this. Sometimes good intentions have bad outcomes," replied Bordoff. "I was young during the Great War. I didn't serve. Like I said, I was too young, but I do remember it well," said Vanya. "Well, I take it you two didn't come here to hear us two old dogs talk about the past. I'm sure you wanted something sweet," said Bordoff. "Yes, sir," replied Katyusha. The two left the store and Vanya checked the time on a sidewalk clock tower. "Let's head to dinner," suggested Vanya to Katyusha. "It's that late already?" she asked. "Yeah," replied Vanya. The two walked down to a small restaurant off the main street. It was dark inside, lit mostly by candles, and a few bulbs to light the rows between seating areas. "Hello," greeted Vanya. "Good day," cheered the man at the restaurant. He was a Westerner, not one of this land. Vanya had met him during the war. "You come for some good old Southern-style comfort?" "I have indeed," replied Vanya as he looked around the restaurant. "Not too busy today, huh?" "Busy as ever," joked the server. "You know the locals don't like us Westerners. Well, you bring your missus for something to eat?" he asked. Vanya nodded as Katyusha looked around. "Well, you two go on ahead and seat yourselves. Whole place is open." Katyusha found a seat that she liked and Vanya sat across from her. She was happy and smiling, and Vanya felt his heart soften as she sat with her elbows on the table and smiled at him. "What are you thinking about?" asked Katyusha. "I'm thinking about you," replied Vanya. "What can I get for you all to drink?" asked the server. "I'll have some tea," said Vanya. "I'll take some lemonade," answered Katyusha. The server nodded and left them be. Katyusha looked at Vanya and asked, "Vanya, why was Mr. Bordov so kind to me?" as she looked at her loot from the candy shop. "Mr. Bordov?" asked Vanya. "Well, I suppose it's 'cause he's from a different time. You know, a time before there was no peace. I mean, we haven't really had peace since before the First Great War, but in the time from then to the Civil War, there was relative peace, you know." "There was?" asked Katyusha. "I always felt the world was in a bad spot. I mean, with our lands apart and everything seems so harsh, I kind of imagined that life would be better if it were all unified." "How old are you?" asked Vanya. 23, replied Katyusha. "Jeez, you're making me feel old," joked Vanya. "Yeah, well, then what you say makes a lot of sense. The First Great War started 24 years ago, and ended when you were just 9. I had just turned 20, my boy turned 2. "Did he join the army as soon as he was 16? Asked Katyusha. Vanya nodded. "Like you, he was an idealist. He got that from his mother. She too always saw the best in things. As soon as he could, he left for military school. I tried to comfort myself in saying that he was probably better off at Pravda during the war. But when I started finding Pravda school uniforms on the battlefield, I remember losing sleep on those nights." Someone approached the two sitting in their booth, and Vanya looked up expecting to see the waiter once again. But to his surprise, he saw a tall woman with striking blue eyes. "Katyusha," she whispered. Katyusha looked up and froze, and I could see it in her eyes as tears formed, the joy that she felt in the moment as she opened her mouth. "Nona, is that you?"